In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Amen.
This morning we continue our theme of looking at the Old Testament. And certainly Moses is coming into his own as one of the great heroes of the Old Testament story. So great was Moses' role, in fact, that some traditions claim that Moses wrote part of the Old Testament. And while as scholars we know that not to be true today, it does tell us that we have in our lesson the beginning of a remarkable calling and an incredible mission and story in the character of Moses. Think about it. Think about all of the metaphors and analogies that we just had laid out in the Old Testament story. Moses is on the hillside and he sees this bush that's on fire. It's not being consumed. Can we be ablaze with God and living in our world at the same time? There's a metaphor. Take off your shoes, for the ground you're standing on is holy. How often do we forget that we are always in the presence of God? And in many ways, the ground we walk on is holy, for God created it. Maybe we should all walk around barefoot more often. Who knows? What is my name? What will I be called? God gives this morning the name we are to call God. I am who I am. What a metaphor that is. Think about that for a second. God's name is always in the present. Have you thought about that? Moses is told of the ancestors that God is the God of. But that's not in the past. God's in the present. I am. The great tense, the verb tense of God's name is always present. It's not just in the future, but no matter how it exists in the past or in things to come, it's always present. So God is not something you and I remember. God is not something we just look forward to. God is something that's here and now and real. These would all be great sermons. They're not this sermon. This sermon today is about an audacious claim. The idea that the Israelites are chosen people. They're chosen, they're special. They're set apart by God to be led out of whatever binds them in Egypt. Whatever they're enslaved to in their lives, they're being led by Moses into a wilderness. They're being called to trust with faith, to go on into the unknown, and they're given the promise of a land of abundance and fruitfulness and a future of grace. This is the sermon today. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I think it's just a bit much to think of ourselves as the inheritors and as the chosen people of God. Can we get over that? That's hard to do. For in our world, all of us are chosen. The whole population of this planet are children of God and are chosen for a special, deeper, loving relationship with their Creator. So how do you and I approach this today? How do we pick up the idea of chosenness, and what do we do with it? A couple weeks ago, I did something I swore I'd never do. I got onto Ancestry.com and I spit in the little vial and I send it off. And this past week, the results came in. It was very interesting. Not unknown to me what the results will be, because if you're familiar with my personality at all, you know I love history and tradition, and you're probably not surprised to learn that my family has detailed genealogies of my family going way back. But it was fun to see it come from just a little spit in a vial. The fact that they could trace my ancestors back to France in the 1700s, to put them on a ship that sent them to Canada. Ancestry.com calls them the lonely settlers in New France. For the Saint Germains settled in Canada, where they worked in the fur and agricultural industries in the 17th, 18th centuries. And then Ancestry has them correctly moving down from Canada into Vermont, where they call the Little Canada of New England, and then spreading forward across the Great Lakes, and then finally coming in my generation to Ohio. So, not a surprise to see the migration of the Saint Germains. And I hope you realize what an old and honorable history Saint Germains were, from that first Saint Germain in Normandy all the way on. And I brought in today for you to admire greatly the Saint Germain coat of arms from my parents' dining room growing up. The Saint Germain blazer patch that had to be worn on special occasions on the blue blazer. And this plate here that also used to be in a place of prominence in our dining room of the Chateau de Saint-Germain in northern France, that beautiful estate that was the ancestral homes of the barons of Saint Germain. There's only one problem. I'm not a Saint Germain. My ancestor in the 1700s committed some unknown crime which made him flee from France to the New World. He was a Lamoureux, but he wanted a new name. So he married a Native American woman, and he just thought the name Saint Germain was really nice. So he took on the name Saint Germain. Now, it has been outlined in this wonderful book that my father had done for me and presented to me. And so I've lived my life proud to be a Saint Germain, but knowing that I really wasn't a Saint Germain at all. It was all just a little bit of a fraud in some ways, but there it is. And I equate that to being chosen by God. Don't we sometimes all feel like a little bit of a fraud when we're told you are chosen, you are special, you're commissioned, you're a disciple, you're an inheritor of Jesus's, everything Jesus would have you, you've got it. Well, it's true, we do. It's sometimes hard to let it in because we feel just a little bit like an imposter in a great, incredible tradition. But yet, my friends, that's the message today. We're not imposters. We are chosen. We're all chosen. We're all chosen to enter into a relationship with a loving God that will transform our world, and it begins by transforming each and every life in this room and the lives of those in this room